Thank you. I'd like to call to order the Bloomington Historic Preservation Commission meeting for Thursday, October 8th, 2020. Thank you for everybody coming to our meeting this evening. We have special guests. Mr. and Mrs. Boxman are going to join the meeting. And if we have any questions, they might be able to help us out. So let's do call to order. Is Dee out there? Roll call.
Roll call, Dee. She's probably muted. Let me find her. I just asked her to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
We can now. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, I got lost somehow. Doug Bruce. Sam DeSaller.
Here.
Susan Dyer.
Here.
Jeff Golden.
Here.
Deb Hutton. Lee Sandweiss.
Here.
John Saunders.
Here.
Chris Sturbaum.
Here.
Duncan Campbell. Ernesto Castaneda.
Here.
Derek Ritchie. Jenny Southern.
I'm here, but it wouldn't let me unmute myself. This is Derek.
Okay, gotcha.
All right, so 1, 2, 3. We have a quorum. All right. I need a motion to approve the minutes from September 24th, 2020.
So moved. This is Jeff.
Second.
I don't know if anyone can get a second.
Oh, we should have Chris. Chris should be able to second.
Can you second it?
I think I can.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. I'll second the approval of the minutes.
Okay, Sam DeSaller.
Abstain.
Susan Dyer.
Abstain.
Jeff Golden.
Yes.
Lee Sandweiss.
Yes.
John Saunders.
Yes.
Chris Sturbaum.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion carries 4-0-2.
Great, thank you. All right, let's move on to COAs. 20-42, 703 South Woodlawn Avenue, Elm Heights. Is the petitioner with us?
Yes.
All right.
Can you hear me? Hi.
We can.
All right, so this property is contributing American Foursquare style home built circa 1920. The property is located in the Elm Heights Local Historic District. The owner wants new windows because a single pane glass is easily broken and they would also like increased energy efficiency. So the request is to replace all of the windows on the building. There is 36 window units on the building. 16 of those are original wood double hung windows. Those are all located on the upper story. And then 20 of those are replacement windows. Reading the Elm Heights design guidelines, they state that if original windows, doors, or hardware can be reused and restored, they should not be replaced. So in total, like I said, there's 36 window units. Storm windows are not installed. Staff did a site inspection from the outside and found that the sash muntins of the original windows on the upper story appear to be in good condition. And really just need to be scraped, painted, and new glazing put on there. So staff would recommend partial approval of COA 2041. The original windows that survive are not severely damaged or deteriorated. They should be maintained and repaired. Staff has no issue with the replacement of the 1/1 windows that you see on the lower stories. Staff would recommend to the petitioner that store windows be installed to help protect the original wood windows, sashes, and also to increase the energy efficiency of those windows.
Great, thank you, Connor. Lindsay, do you have any additional information for us?
No, I feel like that was pretty much it. We've gotten, so once again, we are a rental company. So we've gotten a lot of requests from tenants. Oh, sorry. Did I say
He's
something?
down in the other conference room.
D, can you please mute yourself? Sorry, go ahead, Lindsay.
No, you're okay. So once again, we are a rental company. This house is rented out to students. We just get a lot of complaints, and last year had several arguments with a mother where I tried to explain to her, you know, your guys' guidelines. You know, obviously the windows at the bottom had been replaced. So we would like to get, for the aesthetic purposes, get the entire, like get all of the windows like kind of looking the same. We do use a company out of Montgomery, Indiana. So we do use an Amish window maker. They do make the windows in their own shops. But we would be open to, like, if you guys would only allow us to make the windows through a certain local company in Bloomington, whatever you guys feel comfortable with.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Here are some examples of those windows that Lindsay was talking about that would be the replacements. They've put on some of their other properties already. So there you go.
Great, thank you. All right, question. Chris?
When did the lower windows get replaced?
So we have owned that property for, you'll have to bear with me. I've only been with the company for the past 2.5 years. To my knowledge, we've owned the property for about the past 6 or 7, and they were replaced prior to us purchasing them. Our best guesstimate would be in the late 90s, early 2000s. I don't know if Connor has a better guess.
They've been in pretty decent condition.
Have you looked into
Get it?
replacement windows that
I have
have
no idea.
grids on the glass?
I'm doing good.
I have.
Danielle, just
So
give me
I
a
would
number.
be, so we have done that. So Connor, I wasn't able to get Connor the photos of a house that we've done that has those same
Mine
kind of
was.
cottage grids. Can you guys hear me? There's some people chatting kind of over me.
Yeah,
I can hear you.
Okay, so we have done houses similar to, like, I think the photos I was able to get Connor, you just have the columns, right? But we have done one similar to this where you get the 6 separate panes of glass on the top. And we would be sticking with that style, and we would be doing that throughout the house. Additionally, we would be scraping and painting all of the trim.
Are they internal to the glass or are they applied on the glass?
Could you clarify that question a little more for
The
me?
grids. There are
Oh,
two ways to do grids. They're in the glass or epoxied on the outside of the glass.
No, they're in the glass.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you, sir.
thank you, Chris. Jeff, do you have questions?
Any questions to get any feedback from the local group?
I have not heard from Jenny Southern and Company, no.
Thank you.
Lee?
Questions? And I'm here too. I got here at 5:10.
Yeah, we got you, Deb. Lee, do you have any questions?
No.
No.
Okay. Deb, do you have any questions?
No, I do not. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Susan, do you have any questions?
Nope, I don't have any questions.
All right. Sam?
2 questions. One is, would the petitioner confirm that the windows are going to be fiberglass, the proposed replacements? And also, are they proposing to do a 1/1 to match what's there on the lower floor? And then I got one more question for Connor afterwards.
We would be doing fiberglass. Connor, 1/1. Connor, you explain. Yes, it would be 1/1.
Thank you. Connor,
Connor, we talked about that. Connor, 1/1 just means
One pane
No
of
extra
glass.
ones anywhere.
Glass, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, guys. I'm still learning all of the technical terms.
You're fine.
Connor, the question I've got for you is related to the last thing on this property. Did you actually, staff approve the metal railings for this one?
Yes, I did. There they are.
Thank you.
Sam, can you turn your volume up or your mic up a little bit for us?
I'll see what I can do.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I also want to add that I don't think that originally the windows were all 1/1. Just looking at other patterns in the neighborhood and from other architectural styles from the period this house was built, if they're going to have these 6/1s or 12/1 patterns, that would usually continue throughout the upper and lower floors. So when they replace them, they might have just replaced them with 1/1s instead of keeping the same pane configuration. So I don't know that the 1/1 pane configuration is original to the house.
Oh, let me clarify, guys, because I think I finally understood. We'll be doing, I would like to do 6/1 on the entire house.
Great.
Sorry, if that makes more sense. Like this, you're talking like the 6/1. Yes,
Yeah.
I would like to do that all through the entire house.
Great.
That's clear. Thank you now.
Thank you. Oh, that's good, Sam. All right, Ernesto, do you have any questions?
No questions at this point. Thank you.
Derek, do you have any questions?
I have no questions.
Yeah, and I don't have any questions at this point. So let's move to comments. Chris?
Yes. History is a long time, you know, and I just visited a house on Roger Street where we gave permission to the owner because he bought the windows and he replaced them. The new owner is just so sorry that they got replaced. He's so glad we at least saved them in the garage. And he's got a long-term plan of putting them back. And as I look at this house, what glares are those 1/1 windows, the details of the, what is that, 12/1 and 6/1. Those are defining details of this house. And those windows below are going to fail in the next 15 years, maybe 20 years, but probably 15 years. And maintaining the character of those original windows will mean that the new windows below in as little as 10 or 15 years will be up for replacement. And the character of that front of the building could be restored. So I would recommend not true divided lights, but if we're going to let them be replaced, those same divided lights. But I think our directive really is not to let them be replaced, but have them be restored. And that's my position.
Chris, can I clarify that a little bit? So the windows on the main level are replaced.
I know they are. I'm saying they're going to fail in 10 or 15 years because that's what those windows do.
Right.
They're replacing all the windows, Chris.
They're replacing those replacement windows down below.
Yes.
Okay,
All
well,
6 windows on the building are
right. Well, 6/1 in a small window is very different from 6/1 in a large window. So you maintain the pane of glass size. There's a dog making a comment.
I'm trying to find out who it is. Someone is not muted. Please mute your mic.
So there's a huge difference between on the glass and inside the glass. One looks artificial, one maintains the character of the original windows. So if they were replacing those lower windows and upper windows, I would say match the pane size with the applied muttons on the outside of the glass if we are going to allow them to be replaced, or storm windows above and replace the lower ones with those characters.
All right, good, Chris. Jeff, comments?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Connor on this. I don't think that the existing windows should be replaced. I think they should be rebuilt and or have storm windows installed. And I'm in agreement with Chris that any windows that are now replacements that are going to be replaced should match the grid configuration of those size windows.
Thank you, Jeff. Jeff?
I agree with the summation that Jeff just did of everyone's comments.
Okay. Lee?
I also agree with what Jeff just said.
Susan?
Me too.
Doug? Are you with us? Oh, Doug, Doug. I thought I saw him talking. But it's not. He must have dropped out. Okay.
John,
Yeah.
I'm here too. Doug Bruce.
Hey, Doug, you're kind of,
Couldn't hear anything you said.
yeah,
John?
yes.
Okay, yeah, I'm here. I agree with what Jeff said. I'm sorry, it's not a good connection in my car traveling, and it's in and out of cell phone.
Got it. No problem, Doug. We appreciate your comment and you being here. Thank you. Sam? Oh, Doug is with us too.
Let's see.
I agree with what Jeff said.
That,
Sure.
may I, okay. I don't condone the replacement of original windows. I note that there are 2 replacement windows on the upper story in the middle of the north elevation. If you'd go to that one, Connor, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, that's the west. If you go to the north. So that it looks like those 2 upper windows as well are replacement windows. And I would support doing like a 6/12 on the upper, a 12/12 on the upper, but I think we can only make a suggestion in that they're 1/1s, and they as of right can replace a 1/1. But if they're willing to do a 6/, on a smaller window, but it looks like there aren't any smaller windows, like a 12/1 for the replacements, I would be fine with those, provided that they are applied on both sides with bars between the glass. Otherwise, I just as soon see them with plain 1/1s, because the other ones they don't look like Muntin windows.
All right, thank you, Sam. Ernesto?
Yes, I would agree that all the replacement windows would be 12/1. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Ernesto. Jerry?
Yeah, I'm with Sam on this one. And I also want to alert you, John, I think Duncan showed up here a little late, so he's here now too.
All right, thank you, Jerry. Duncan?
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I agree basically with Connor's recommendation. I think you should preserve the original windows, and if you're going to replace we never did get a report on the condition of the replacement windows, but they're not as important to us since they're already replacements. But I think they should be replaced with what was their original, if it's at all possible. But as Sam pointed out, we can't really mandate that.
Thank you, Duncan.
And actually, I'd like to add that it's always cheaper to repair real wood windows than it is to replace them with anything as good as they are. If they're maintained, they'll last virtually forever. And putting a storm window on is the way to make sure that happens. The way to preserve your investment. And storm windows are way cheaper than new windows.
Very true. Thank you, Duncan. I don't have any comments to make. My fellow commissioners have already made those for me. So we need a motion for COA 20-42.
I move to partially approve COA 20 dash, what are we, 20-41?
42.
42.
Oh, sorry, my bad, 20-42. With the caveat that the original windows be retained and that the replacement windows can either be replaced in the configuration they currently are, or with divided light windows with grids applied on both inside and outside with shadow bars, matching the 12 over 1 pattern on the existing original windows.
All right. Thank you, Sam.
Second.
Thank you, Jeff. D,
Doug Bruce,
Yes.
Sam DeSaller,
Yes.
Susan Dyer,
Yes.
Jeff Golden,
Yes.
Deb Hutton,
Yes.
Lee Sandwise,
Yes.
John Saunders,
yes.
Chris Sturbaum. Chris Sturbaum,
Yes.
Thank you, Chris.
motion carries 600. I'm sorry, 800.
Thank you, Dee. So let's move on to COA 20-43, 1210 North Washington Street.
David and Tim, are either of you present? I thought I saw Tim earlier.
Tim is here, yes.
Okay, thank you. So this is a contributing California bungalow style home built circa 1920. Property is located in the Garden Hill Local Historic District. Kind of the background on this case is city planning issued a stop work order when it was discovered that some work was going on in the rear of the house without a planning permit. So the request is to construct an 8 by 12 by 30-foot deck and screened-in porch on the rear of the building. The porch will have asphalt shingle, hip roof, and be framed with treated lumber. Heavy-duty mesh screen will be installed from floor to ceiling. So the door and the windows in the rear of this building will be partially obscured by this porch screening, but the rear of the home is only visible from an alley, which is where I took this photograph. While the drawing submitted by the petitioner is inaccurate, there is enough framing already erected to understand what is happening. So this is the drawing that I got from the petitioner. You can see it looks like a gable roof there, but the framing looks like a hip. So staff would recommend approval of COA 2043. The location of the deck and screen porch is in the rear, which is where you want it. The materials are compatible with the primary structure, and the addition is subordinate in height and massing to the primary structure. So all these meet the local guidelines, and the Neighborhood Design Review Committee voiced their approval of the project.
All right, Mr. Shield or Tim, do you have any more comments?
Tim, I'm taking David's place since I know about the construction of it. I'm just doing it for him, so I can answer the questions for you.
Okay, great. Do you have any additional comments for us?
No, not really. I mean, we even put a French drain around the front of this too. He's already got one French drain that's already in front of this wall, and we have another French drain that comes around and comes around the house too to take care of the drainage and stuff that's up there. So
great. Thank you.
I can't see that I didn't have in that print, so I wanted you to know that. So
all right. Thank you very much. All right, let's do questions. Chris?
Yeah, will this be guttered?
yes.
And was there a reason to go higher than the existing gutter line?
Because when you step out the door, see the door?
Right.
It's, level with this little wall that's down there. And so we put a step up onto the deck, and we had to actually dig some of this dirt out here to put this, to put that in. That's why we went higher, so we'd have an 8-foot ceiling in there.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Jeff, questions?
No questions.
Thank you. Deb, questions?
No questions at this time.
Thank you. Lee?
Oh, no questions.
Thank you. Susan?
Nope, no questions.
Thank you. Doug?
No questions.
Thank you. Sam?
No questions.
Thank you. Ernesto?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Derek?
No questions.
Thank you. Duncan?
Nope.
Great. And I will follow suit. I don't have any questions on this. So let's move to comments. Chris?
The form is attractive. I hope it is going to be painted or stained, not left natural wood, but pretty good, nice looking roof. Thank you.
Thanks.
Jeff?
I support this COA.
Thank you. Deb?
I support it. I just wondered from Connor if anyone in the Garden Hill local district made any comments.
I did. I heard back from Carrie, and she told me that they support this.
Thanks.
All right. Lee?
No questions. I mean, no comments.
Susan?
Yeah, I support this one as well. It really looks nice.
It does. Doug?
Yes, I support this. It's the neighborhood supports it, and it's at the rear, and we've always typically let these go, and this looks really nice.
Thank you, Doug. Sam?
I would support this, but I would also suggest to the owner that they look into mosquito curtains before they put the mesh up, because you get a lot better light throughout the year.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Sam. Ernesto?
No comments or questions. Thank you. Looks good.
Great. Derek?
Yeah, Doug's right. This is how houses grow. They grow from the back. This is just historic and true. I think we definitely approve this one.
Great. Thank you, Derek. And Duncan?
No comment.
All right. Thanks, Duncan. And I must agree with everybody else. I think the roof line is very good, and I think it's going to be a nice project. And I support it as well. So I need a motion.
Move to approve 20-43.
Thank you.
Second. Deb.
D?
Doug Bruce,
Yes.
Sam DeSaller,
Yes.
Susan Dyer,
Yes.
Jeff Golden,
Yes.
Deb Hutton,
Yes.
Lee Sandweiss,
Yes.
Don Saunders,
Yes.
Chris Sturbaum.
Yes.
Motion carries 800.
Great. Thank you, Dave. All right. So let's move on to COA 20-44, another Garden Hill district. And it is 208 East 15th Street.
Susan, are you with us?
I am.
All right, thank you.
I also have my contractor, James, on the meeting as well.
Wonderful, good to know. Hello. So this property is located in the Garden Hill Local Historic District. The home appears to be a crescent, which was a house model sold by Sears and Roebuck and Company. The request is the demolition of a sunroom on the rear of the home and the construction of a new rear addition that is 19 by 22 feet. Renovation of the front porch area to bring it back to what it originally would have looked like. So they're going to remove this porch here that had been extended out to either side. They're going to be putting in wood column, I believe rounded wood columns here, removing some of this aluminum siding, yeah, trying to shore it up here. They're also going to replace all windows on the structure with vinyl windows of the same size, shape, and paint configuration as the originals they are replacing, and also a new front door slab as well. So the Garden Hill design guidelines state to retain historic character of defining architectural features and detailings, such as brackets, cornices, windows, and gable end shingles, and retain the proportion of all original openings. Replacement of windows and doors determined to be original must duplicate the original in size and scale. Regarding the removal of original siding, that is, flexibility is encouraged. So this is coming from the local design guidelines. I may also mention that they would like to remove the aluminum siding and insul brick siding, and they're going to see what the condition of the clapboard siding is underneath and hope to maintain that. If not, they'll replace it with fiber cement board siding. So the reconstruction of the front porch, based on the illustrations found in the Sears catalogs, and the removal of the unoriginal siding is really a restoration job. It makes it a more authentic aesthetic. Some of the original windows on the sides of the house, you can see here the front porch, the concrete is a giant hole. It really needs to be fixed. Some of the windows on the sides of the house are in really, really poor shape, and staff supports replacement of these windows. But the windows on the front of the house, which are character defining features, really should be maintained. They're actually in pretty good shape. Staff supports the replacement of the current slab with the door slab with a craftsman style door slab. So the recommendation is partial approval. Staff supports the approval of all project activities, with the exception being the replacement of the original windows on the front facade. This is a picture of the little rear sunroom. It's on wood supports here, it looks like. So very weak structurally. So that is all staff has.
Great. Susan, do you have anything to add?
I don't think so. Yeah, we're hoping to uncover the original lap siding and use that. We're able to see a little bit of it on the inside of the sunroom, and it looks to be okay. So we're just going to have to tear it off and see what we've got. But either way, we will put back what was there as close as we can to what was there if we have to replace it.
Great, thank you very much, Susan. So let's move on to questions. Chris?
Did staff recommend replicating the replacement windows with the 6/1 applied to the glass as we discussed in the last window issue?
Absolutely, without question.
Yes,
Good.
that is our plan, Chris.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you, Chris. Jeff, do you have questions?
I don't have any questions.
All right. Deb, do you have questions?
Yes, I do. I have one. It's a delightful looking house, and I'm really glad you're restoring it in large part. My one question has to do with the front columns. Right now, they appear to be pure brick columns, and in your picture, in your design, it looks like you're going to take the brick down to about 2 to 3 feet high and then replace it with more authentic looking columns. Is that true? And what would the columns be made of?
Correct. The way that this house is designed, it doesn't quite have as high a pitch on that front gable as the drawing. So we don't have quite enough room to put in a big header up there at the top of those columns and get 2 or 3 columns like they show in that picture. But we are going to try to replicate that as best we can using a round, probably wood column. That's what I have picked out at this moment. And James, you can speak to that if you'd like, but I've found a wood column that we can use there and then build a brick sort of pediment for that to sit on. So it looks very much like the crescent picture.
And so carrying on from that, with the brick of your pediment, is that original brick I'm looking at in the picture of the photograph of the house now? Is it original, or is that sort of mid-here?
I don't think that's original, but I don't know. We did not plan to reuse that. It all has to be taken off to fix the foundation. So our plan is to try to replicate it in color and style, but not necessarily use that same brick.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Lee?
No, I don't have any questions.
All righty. Doug?
Were there any comments from the neighborhood association?
They told me that they support this project as well. Pretty
Okay, thank you. That's the only question I had.
Susan?
Nope, no questions.
I agree. Sam?
No questions.
Ernesto?
Yes, I do have a question. In your drawing, the proposed drawing, it shows that the front porch roof pitch is steeper than the original. Is that accurate?
I'm sorry, say that again.
If you look at the photo of your existing house, the roof pitch on the front porch is much shallower than what
Right.
you're drawing. Is that what you're gonna do? Raise the slope of the roof, or?
No, we don't plan to change that gable on the front. We just are going to work underneath it
Okay.
and trying to restore that look.
Okay, great. One more question.
Mhm.
The underside, the soffit around the house on the sides, is that gonna be, right now it looks like it's aluminum.
Yeah.
So what are you planning to do there?
James, can you talk to that?
Yes.
So I'm trying to unmute. So yeah, I think right now it's aluminum, but we are talking about either going wood or kind of looking at what you guys wanted, what we could be approved to go back up there with.
Open to suggestions on that. There are no exposed rafter ends on this house. So we would be putting back something similar to what's there now, I think.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Ernesto.
Thank you.
Gary?
No questions.
Duncan?
Connor, can you put up the what they submitted, the plan they submitted?
I don't have that on my PowerPoint. Do you guys have it in your packet?
Well, I couldn't download the packet this afternoon for some reason. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, can you find it? I've got a picture of it here. I don't know that it's going to come across very well if I hold it up. But it is basically, can you see this at all? It's basically an addition to the back of the house that is set in on each side by about 2 feet. We will have a back door coming out of one side of it. And then it will have a gable similar to the back gable, just right underneath the back gable. Does that answer your question?
Well, that gives me a visual. Thank you.
Yeah.
So did they propose or submit specifications for the front door and the window replacements?
Yeah, she sent me a picture of the, can you guys see this drawing on your screen? What do you see on your screen?
Still just seeing the pictures.
Slide number 22.
Okay, let me stop share and then do a new share and you'll see I got the packet pulled up. So Susan, it's like the door slab has, I think, 6 little panes in the top here. And
It will be a craftsman style door, kind of a bungalow style door. When I drew that photo, I hadn't actually picked out the door yet. Since then I have, and I wish I could pull it up right now and show it to you. But yeah, it has a window in the top and it's got panes in the top so that it looks similar to the tops of the windows.
And the windows you have drawn there, are they drawn the same way as they really are on the house?
On the front, they are, the sides are 4/1 and the front is 6/1, I believe.
Yeah, I'll go to it so we can see it here.
It's a 4 and an 8.
I see an 8.
Is it
More like a 16.
I think it's a 6. I could have it wrong.
Oh, goodness. This is a Microsoft Street view?
That's not good. Here, I've got it on my phone. I'll look it up right now. Yeah, the front windows are 6/1.
Yes.
Yep.
And then some of the side windows that are smaller are 4/1.
The ones on the front, the side, on the right front, looking at the facade, are smaller. The wing windows on that assembly are smaller than the one in the middle.
Yeah, the ones on
It
the
looks
right
like
are
it-
4-1s over on each side, and then an 8/1 in the middle on the right side, and then the
Yeah.
left side is drawn correctly.
That's
Oh,
what I
is
saw.
it? Okay. Yeah, okay. Sorry about that. I didn't realize that.
I'm not trying to criticize your drawing.
No,
I'm just,
no, I
I'm just
appreciate
trying to
that.
get-
I hadn't noticed that, you're right. There we can see it. 8/1 and then 4/1 on the sides. Okay.
right. And on the crescent, they're actually triplets on each side.
Yeah. So they had, the original window's a little bit different than the crescent plan.
Yeah, that's common actually with the kit houses.
Yeah.
But the reason I'm asking about these specifications is that we don't like to have somebody just say, we're going to put in a craftsman style door. We want people to say, we're going to put in door A, B, C. You know, we want to know exactly what the door is.
Let me pull that up for you. Can you hold on just a second? I've got it.
I'm not sure you have to do that right now. Let
Okay.
me just finish for a second.
I sent it to Connor. Connor, I don't know if you can pull it up or not, but I did send it to him.
The reason for that is so we know that you've done what we allowed you to do.
Gotcha.
And it's just a matter of record keeping on the one hand, but being able to hold people to the line when they commit to doing something. If we don't know exactly what the window looks like or what the door looks like, then we can't come
Sure.
back to you and say, no, that's not what you said you were going to do. So,
Sure.
so I guess I'm just suggesting that you and Connor can work that out, but generally speaking, we want to see exactly what the replication is going to be. And I congratulate you for what you're trying to do here, because these kit houses are really important houses, and they seem minor, but they're really not. And the more you can do to return it to its original appearance, the happier we'll all be.
I agree. I love them and I want to save them.
We just have to have a plan that we can go back to and say, okay, she did what she said she was going to do.
Yeah.
So you can work that out with Connor,
Okay.
I think, and unless anyone else on the committee wants to see those things now. I don't particularly.
No, we're good. Thank you.
That's all.
Thank you.
All right. I don't have any questions at this point. I do have a comment.
John, can I ask another question, please?
Sure, Deb.
So going off from what Duncan was pointing out, Susan, from the picture that you have of the house as it is now compared to the kit drawing, on the right-hand side as we're looking at it, your house has the one wider window, then about a foot, and then the narrow window, the 8/, and then the 4/. Fairly replicating what the ideal picture is. But in your drawing, you have 3 similarly paned windows side by side, all the same size and no wider space between any of them. Would you be willing to, or to the other folks on the commission, should she, go back to the more original one wide window like the 8/, and a space of a foot or so, and then the narrower 4/, which is seems more typical of the original crescent plan?
Deb, I think in Connor's recommendations that they retain those windows in the front.
Oh, and therefore that would retain that.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, Chris.
One more question. Could I ask another question?
Yes, Chris.
So is there a side light in that new door?
No,
Because the door is offset.
it is.
And
Yeah,
could there
we
have been a side light originally?
No, Chris, there's not room on the other side. I really would have liked to have put a side light in to make that look a little bit more even in that front gable, but there's not room. There's a wall behind there that's about 8 inches behind the door.
Right, so they never did it.
They
Yeah.
never did it. Yeah.
Okay, one more question.
Mm-hmm.
The eaves are covered in aluminum, but I would expect these to have had exposed rafters originally.
Yeah, I would have too. we can see on the, as you're looking at the house on the left side, the soffit is come off on the side gable, and you can see the rafter ends there. I don't think they were ever exposed. James, you can talk to this. We've looked at it a few times. The rafter ends that are up there are really rotten. So I don't know that they ever were exposed, but it doesn't look like it. James, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, no, I don't think they ever were exposed.
Yeah. I mean,
the area that we see anyways is all rotted out on that one side. So
Right.
I don't think it ever was.
When you pull all the aluminum, it'll become obvious whether or not they were originally exposed.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if they weren't.
The house next door to it, Chris, is similar to this one, and they also don't have rafter ends exposed. I don't know if it's that those have been covered up too. I've been trying to look at the neighborhood and gauge whether there would have been, but I guess we won't know till we get all that pulled up, but it doesn't look like it. I wish I could show them to you because you would know, but.
Oh, that's okay. You'll know when you pull the rest of it off.
Yeah.
All right, Chris. Do you have a comment?
No, I support staff's position of maintaining the front windows and replacing the back with appropriate replacement windows.
Terrific. Thank you, Chris. Jeff, comments?
Also, same as Chris, I support this with retaining the front windows.
Thank you. Deb?
Yes, I support it too. Thanks.
Thank you. Lee?
I also support it.
Great, thank you, Lee. Susan?
Yeah, I support this one too, the way staff has recommended it.
Thank you. Doug?
Yes, I support this. I also applaud the restoration, and I also agree that the front windows should remain since they're such a defining element of the house.
Thank you, Doug. Ernesto?
Yes, I support staff recommendations, and I'm so happy to see that you guys are tackling this project. It's going to be very nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Ernesto. Derek?
Yeah, it looks like this was originally sort of the discount Crescent kit without all the thrills and frills, but it's still important. And I'm really happy that you're fixing this up. So I support staff.
Thank you. Duncan?
Ditto.
Thank you, Duncan. So I want to really applaud Susan for taking this project on. I actually have been in this property and thought about just running away. You've got a ton of stuff to do there.
Yes, we do.
Thank you for taking this project on. It is a cool house.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to it. One other comment I just wanted to tell you all, the original storms are on the front windows as well. And so we're going to try to keep those too. So that's definitely an element we'd like to keep.
Great, thank you, Susan. So we need a motion.
Move to approve COA 20-44 with the exception of retaining the front windows, repairing and keeping them the same.
Jeff, are you saying with the exception of windows, or are we, because what Connor was saying that.
Whatever Connor said, that's the motion I'm trying to make.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Jeff.
Second.
Great. Dee, will you do our roll call, please?
Deb seconded that, I believe.
Doug Bruce,
Yes.
Sam DeSaller,
Yes.
Susan Dyer,
Yes.
Jeff Golden,
Yes.
Deb Hutton,
Yes.
Lee Sandweiss, Lee Sandweiss,
Yes.
Thank you, Lee.
Did that work? Okay.
John Saunders,
Yes.
Chris Sturbaum.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0-0.
Nice project.
Yes, thank you very much. All right, we're gonna move on to demolition delay. And we're gonna start out with 20-17, which is 424.5 South Walnut Street. Connor?
Sure. So first I'd like to welcome Charlie Boxman, his wife Joyce, for joining us this evening. Charlie is the son of Henry Boxman, who we've been talking about. Thank you, John. So staff would recommend that this is forwarded to the Common Council for designation. Staff finds that the building is eligible under historic criteria 1A. It's associated with a person who played a significant role in local history. That would be Henry Boxman. Henry Boxman operated a successful and highly popular restaurant business out of this building for almost 4 decades. Boxman's restaurant received a nationwide recognition for their customer service and quality of food. Mr. Boxman was a pioneering restaurateur during a time when the industry was really coming into its own, as sit-down dining became accessible, affordable, and a popular social activity for working-class Americans. He was a leader in both the state and national restaurant associations and received recognition from both organizations for his lifelong service and leadership. Mr. Boxman was even recognized by President Truman for his service to the nation as a food consultant during the Second World War. Boxman put Bloomington on the map as a destination for good food, a reputation that Bloomington still has today. Boxman spent his life achieving success in an industry that is highly competitive, uncertain, and vulnerable to shifts in social behavior and perception. You know, we've all kind of watched on helplessly. Some of our favorite eateries have closed down due to the COVID pandemic. So we know that restaurants are fleeting. Even the best ones have trouble staying open for more than a couple of decades. As a result, there's a sort of amnesia, a lack of historical recognition of these places that they existed, even though they were an important and enjoyable and a memorable part of people's lives. The designation of this building, because of its association with Henry Boxman, would be the first of its kind to recognize the social and cultural importance of a local building significant because of its association with food services in Bloomington. Staff finds that the building is eligible under Historic District Criteria 2B. It is the work of a builder whose individual work has significantly influenced the development of a community. And that would be with its association to the Mitchell brothers, Stanley and Ira Mitchell. The Mitchell brothers built a handful of brick commercial block buildings along South Walnut in the 1920s. These buildings, crowned proudly with the stamp of their builders, are part of the architectural fingerprint of the city and form a recognizable pattern along its southern corridor. The 2-story section with the M emblazoned on the top represents an era of immense growth and prosperity for our city and for our nation. It is one of the few survivors from that time that embodies in its materials and features the architectural legacy of the Roaring '20s. For these reasons, staff recommends that the Historic Preservation Commission forward the building at 44 South Walnut to the Common Council with a recommendation for historic designation.
Okay, thank you, Connor. All right, so let's do questions. And we'll start with Chris.
Yes, am I still muted?
No, we hear you.
Okay. When do we get to hear the Boxmans talk about the building?
Right now. Bear with us.
Do you guys have any comments to say about this?
Your thoughts, concerns?
Well, naturally, I feel very grateful if they could preserve it in some fashion. Maybe not a complete restoration, but at least there's something that would give a nod, as the saying goes, to the character of the buildings. I do see a difference in the right word, the durability of the 2 sections of the building, the 1-story versus the 2-story. I can see more life ahead for the 2-story portion than I can the 1-story.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, rather than wiping the whole thing out because one weak area, perhaps the 2-story part could be preserved. I would be interested in I did see the inside of the main restaurant dining room a few years ago. I happened to be snooping around when somebody was there one afternoon, and this individual let me in. It was kind of aghast at what I saw. The whole first floor of 422 and 424 were all one. Yeah, all the partitions had been removed. So
Good. And did you work there on the yacht?
on occasion, I did spend one 6-month period, but between the time I graduated from IU with a Air Force commission and the time I was actually called to duty, I was working full time at that time. But most of the other endeavors were just pinch hitting on IU football days.
Oh, busy days?
It's very busy, overflowing.
Well, if any of the commissioners have questions for Mr. Boxman, you can certainly address those questions to him. And I would also ask that when we get to the public comment section, if you're a member of the public who would like to comment, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom, and I will look for that and call on you. That's how we're going to do public comment, but please stay muted until then. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Jeff, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions.
Perfect. Deb?
For Mr. Boxman, when you were working there, when your grandfather owned it, was it two separate buildings from the inside point of view? You either went in one door to the 2-story building, or you went in another door to the 1-story restaurant, and they were attached but separate entities, or was there some kind of join between them at all?
Well, they operated as a single building.
Oh, they did.
There was passage up front near the sidewalk, and in the back side of the dining room.
I have a second question for you, sir. When you were there after graduating and working a little bit, was it a dine-in restaurant by that time, or was it still the curbside? And was that what was the front door like when you were there? Was it a flat door, or did it have the sort of plywood wood around it, or did it have the block glass around the front door?
Well, when I was, most of my memories are of this 1951 label photo. In fact, that was the most durable. 39 to early 50s. It's the one
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Lee?
I don't have any questions.
Susan?
No, I don't have any questions either, but thank you to the Boxmans for coming in.
Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Susan. Doug, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Thank you, Doug. Sam?
No questions.
Ernesto?
No questions, but thank you to the Boxmans for coming tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry?
Yeah, I want to ask if they ever got to meet Colonel Sanders.
Yes, indeed. In fact, Colonel Sanders helped through a cake and punch at my sister's wedding, which was in December of '56, the last final days of Oxford Dresden.
And is it true? Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't done. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
So I've heard this, the stories passed along when I was writing my book, etc. But that you guys were one of the first restaurants in Indiana to agree to cook Colonel Sanders chicken there at the restaurant.
I'm not certain of that. I want to say I doubt it, but I wouldn't rule it out.
Okay.
Dad knew Colonel Sanders from back in the late 30s. My first exposure to Colonel Sanders was at his restaurant, I think it was Gaston's, adjacent L-shaped motel, called Sanders Court. This was in 1940 on a family vacation trip to the Smoky Mountains. Then we were there again in 46, headed to the same destination.
Awesome. Well, it's just nice to know the stories I heard about the connections to and the friendship between your father and Colonel Sanders was indeed fact. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Derek. Hey, Duncan, any questions?
No.
All right, great. So we'll move on to comments. Chris?
Is there a presentation by the petitioner?
He's certainly welcome to present during at any time, whenever John feels that's appropriate.
Okay. Josh, do you have anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, hey guys, we're on here and just kind of more of a continuation from where we left off last week. I know that there was some speculation as to whether or not the building was a Mitchell building or not, but I mean, given the light that Mr. Boxman here, the grandson, said that, they made the effort to come here. I mean, we would name the new building the Boxman. We'd be more than happy to put up a plaque and reference all the stuff that Connor just read. We would do our best to repurpose the limestone and as much of the brick on the front facade in the new building as we possibly could. The new front would be of a brown nature, a brown color tone. All that is no issues on our part. Our main driving force as far as the petition that we had is the building is beyond repair, and so it's not that we want to just tear down as many buildings as we can. That's not the nature here. It's just this building is beyond salvage. We've got 3 separate contractors. One of the contractors guys actually redid the Von Maur Theater. He was able to save that building, but he said this one is beyond repair. And so these are the opinions of the experts that we rely on to make.
Is that the petitioner?
Yes, it is.
He's gone on mute.
Sorry, I accidentally muted you, Josh. You're on.
You still there, Josh?
Yeah, I'm here. I don't know where I got muted. And so does anyone know where I left off or what I was saying?
Where the contractors, your contractors and your advisors have declared it unsalvageable, the building.
Yeah, thank you, Deb. But and one of those contractors actually redid the Von Maur Theater, and so they've been down this road before, and so those are the experts, and so that's why we chose the direction that we did.
Thank you, Josh. So let's move on down to Jeff. Comments.
Can you repeat that, sir?
Thank you, Josh. I'm asking if Jeff Golden has any comments.
Was Chris done yet with his comments?
I thought he was.
He's
Chris, you're on mute.
I'm asking him to unmute.
Okay, unmuted.
Yeah, Chris, you have additional comments?
Are we in comments?
Yes.
Okay. Well, buildings travel through time by being forever repaired. They're not magic. They don't stay perfect, but they get restored and they get repaired and they get put back to life. And I have suggested a couple of options of preserving the facade, and I haven't heard a response that reflected that they were interested in or willing to do that. And I'm going to have to vote to support staff's recommendation to send this to council. It's a good building with history. It can be, nothing cannot be repaired. And that's going to be my position.
And actually, Chris, I'm not sure if you misunderstood what I said. I mean, our goal is to repurpose as much of this stuff on the front as we can. And so, but it was the way I understood the attorney last time, it was kind of an all or nothing.
Are we to have dialogue, Connor, or?
No.
Okay, thank you.
And Josh, if you kind of hold your comments after we get down to the comments and commissioners at this point.
No problem.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate it. All right, Jeff, your comments.
Yeah, so I have several comments. One, I reviewed all of the public response, and as Connor well noted in the email to us, that was about 2 to 1 in favor of releasing this permit. A lot of the ones that were for saving it were about the Players Pub, and this is kind of an emotional response to a place where they had a really good time. But saving this building will not bring back the Players Pub. As far as the Boxmans and the restaurant, I think that they should be honored in some way. I totally agree. What's left of that building doesn't pay any homage to what the Boxmans did. There's nothing really left of other than the brick on the front that pays homage to what happened there before. I think there's another way to honor the Boxmans, which I think they should be. The whole KFC connection, I don't give any credit to that. That's a corporate symbol that was used to sell crappy food. And then as far as the location, this is a difficult location, which there are several other buildings. Well, there's 2 I can think of within half a block that are in worse shape than the Players Pub. We have a homeless issue at the park a block away, and this building is in disrepair. And I think this is a time to revitalize this part of downtown, which needs it. And then there are some of the comments address the environmental issue, that replacing this building would be a problem, putting this in the landfill. Any kind of rehab of this building, most of the structure is going to have to be removed and put in a landfill anyway. The only thing that's, at least from my perspective, that's left at all is the facade, and the facade has changed greatly. So I'm going to support releasing this permit.
Thank you, Jeff. Deb?
Yes, I too read all the comments, thoughtful on both parts, for and against demolition. I do take though that a lot of people say it looks awful and it's decrepit. I think the whole point of restoration is that it becomes viable, whether we see the City Hall, Johnson Creamery, or any of the other courthouse. They become viable, they become vibrant, they become secure and safe if those buildings are restored. So just because it's a disaster right now in terms of structure doesn't mean that if it was restored, it would continue to be. I do look at Josh's plan, although we're not supposed to, his planning is his own business. We can't make a vote based on his plan, but I do see the two-story and one-story sort of front facade silhouette of these 2 buildings on his plan, and I give Josh lots of credit for that. On the other hand, we've seen so many restaurants leave town, and Honor Carter for saying this would be the first food service building restored or saved or put into historic designation if it would make it that far. Even though legally we cannot say, apparently, that, well, save the front facade and then put up your 4-story building behind it, which is what, of course, I would like to do. I do see the history of the Boxmans and the restaurant business in this town. And there's so many restaurants we have lost. And the restaurants, sort of echoing Jeff's comments, they too are commercial, not as bad as nationally commercial as Colonel Sanders, but nonetheless, restaurants are someone's business and they come and go. So looking at the buildings, I am, for now, most likely to vote to have this, to present it to the Common Council for local designation if they would see fit.
Thank you, Deb. Lee?
I too have read all of the commentary and all of the additional materials, and I agree with Deb.
All right, thank you, Lee. Susan?
So I was on the fence before because this building is in such bad shape once you get to the inside. But I really do like the historic nature of our downtown. And I think, the comments that talk about preserving it, I'm in agreement. So at this point, I'm thinking I'm going to support moving it on to the Common Council for designation.
Thank you, Susan. Doug?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. We're entering St. Louis and I'm looking at the arch right now. So I'm going to agree with and side with Jeff on this one. And I've had two things that I've thought about, and I've also spent some time in this building as Players Pub, but also for various clients that I've looked at the building and the structure specifically of the 1-story portion. The main thing that I've looked at is that, if anything, all of the pictures that we've seen of this building, that's been in every presentation that we've had, have shown that this building has changed so much over time that I'm not sure what point in time we're looking at now is as historic as some of the other lovely pictures, specifically when the Boxmans had this building and their restaurant. I like some of the things that the petitioner is going to do as far as a plaque and trying to repurpose as much as he can. Part of me that has really struggled with this is I'm not so sure that the council would find enough here to move towards designation. I'm still not in agreement that this is a Mitchell building. There's so much that has changed with brick and no brick and glass and all of the things on the building that I would want to see, or that we have seen in some of the other Mitchell buildings. And then finally, my final comment is that, I'm still looking at this thinking, is this building as it sits right now more historic than the Chocolate Mousse structure, again, another restaurant along the same block that we allowed to be removed, because I still think it held more promise for designation than what we're looking at now. So with that, I'm going to vote for releasing the permit. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Sam?
I as my other commissioners did, I've read through all the comments. It's a contentious issue. There's, but it was interesting to me to hear what the Boxmans had to say. They're, they're like, well, the low one doesn't have much life left in it. And also, I want to echo some of the things that my other commissioners, my fellow commissioners, have said. The building, the 1-story building, has changed significantly over the course of its life. And at what point are we saying this is the historic building? One other issue I'd like to bring up is I always like to think about who, what the neighborhood thinks about this building. I mean, this is a community resource, but every neighbor, every business owner in the neighborhood wants to tear this thing down. Our downtown, our historic downtown, it's beautiful. We've got this great square. We've got a courthouse with surrounded by a solid wall of 2-story buildings all the way around. That's amazing. You come down to this part of the development corridor, and there's very little context left. There's parking lots. There's some horrible buildings from the 80s. There's 1 or 2 other buildings down the street of the same era. Matt Murphy's building is a nice exception in terms of condition. But I was one of the commissioners who walked through this building when the petitioner was kind enough to invite us to go. And it's a disaster in there. The facade is really the only portion of the building that is salvageable. And, if there was an option to salvage the facade alone, I'd say, yeah, go for that, but there is not. And regardless of what they put up after, that's not our purview. Does the saving of this building work for the greater good of the community of Bloomington, or does tearing it down and having something new that matches the scale of what the new UDO and the surrounding context, letting the petitioner do that, is that better? And I think that's the question, or at least one of the questions I'm thinking about as we go forward. So I am likely to support demolition on this one.
Sam, it is my understanding that if we were to send this to Common Council, and if it would be designated historic, then we would have the opportunity at the commission level to maybe save the facade and let stuff go behind it. But it would have to go through Common Council first. Am I right on that, Mark? Yeah. Okay. And I also want to point out that the windows on the structure and the side doors are still very much to the original texture of that building. Let's move on. Ernesto, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I have some comments. I did read the letters that were submitted to the commission. Yes, some of them are against, some of them are for it. I do have to say that there's a lot here to talk about and to save this building. Both of the buildings. As much as some people say that it's in bad shape, that's what restoration is all about. There is something there to be saved. And not only as a building, but let's not forget about the context of where this building is. This is part of downtown Bloomington. If we're going to continue demoing buildings of this character, of this value, I don't know what's going to happen next. I just think if it is worth saving. There's a lot to be done, yes, but I think this is one of those buildings that needs to be saved. There's no question about it in my mind. I don't think there is nostalgia about it. I think this is about saving a structure that deserves to be restored. Yes, the roof is sagging, sure. How old is that roof? When was the last time it was, restored? I think this is such a great building. Just, the windows are still there. Those are the original windows. So anyway, I just want to say that I agree with some of my fellow commissioners here, and I would like for this building to be saved. Both of them, of course. Thank you.
Duncan?
Nope, you skipped me.
Sorry, Gary. I was going to get back to you.
Okay, I just didn't want you to leave me behind.
No way.
Oh, should I go then?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to thank Josh first because the owner took me last Wednesday, I think it was, through the two buildings or through and around the buildings. And yeah, there's no doubt that the inside of the Players Pub in particular it's in bad shape. There's no doubt about it. However, let's start with context. It is a contributing structure, number one. And why is it contributing? Because most of the west side of South Walnut, starting at the Alco building and heading south, are, they fit the context. Some people don't think so. I think, yeah, there are roughly some 10 or 20 years between some of them, but this building provides some history and some context for that, what remains of the west side, because we know the east side's long gone. As far as it being in bad shape, yeah, buildings change over time, and if they're not perfectly upkept, but they're gonna have issues. And I do think that this building is not comparable to the Chocolate Mousse in the sense that the Chocolate Mousse was just a tiny little, a tiny structure that without the Chocolate Mousse, what is it? It's basically a shack. Well, this is an actual structure, a building, and I think it provides that part of the street some context. So I agree with John that we send this on to the city council to be designated. And in that way, we can work with Josh on coming up with something, using a certificate of appropriateness or whatever we have, or whatever we end up, deciding together that, we can save the facades of either buildings or both buildings. But if we do that and we send it and it's designated, we'll have that opportunity. And that way it allow Josh to move forward with this project. So I recommend we send this to the city council.
Thank you very much, Terry. Jenny, I'm sorry, I did not see you come in. So please give us your comments.
Yeah, I would also support designating the building. Those are the original windows. I can see on the two-story, somebody's replaced them recently, but I can remember recently that they were actually the old ones too. The protuberances on the front, that's removable. The original facade is still back there that you see in the modern pictures. And, obviously brick would be what we would be saving, the brick and limestone original structures. I realize the back of the building is in bad shape. And I also would be so lenient and generous and do something to satisfy our petitioner about building something behind the facades. I would like the facades kept. It's very appropriate for that street. It's appropriate for Bloomington. It has a lot of history. I like the idea of a plaque. It's going to be commercial on the bottom anyway. It already looks commercial. So, and basically his design already had that on the bottom, I guess, because this building was here and he was trying to make a nod for it. But the petitioner I would like to see the real structured front kept instead of just a nod to it by saving some of the brick and limestone. Okay, that was it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jenny. I appreciate that. Duncan?
Yeah, I read the letters also, and the thing that I noticed the most about them was that all the people who seemed to support the demolition, there were very few of the people who supported demolition who said one word about the historic significance of the building. Most all of the people who supported designation talked almost exclusively about the history of the building. The two criteria that Connor has listed are two of several that we're allowed to look at when we consider these kinds of projects. And that's kind of all we're allowed to look at. So to advocate for demolition seems to be to say there isn't any history here. And I just don't agree with that. What makes it so difficult, I think, is the building condition for everyone, the petitioner as well as many of us. And as you all know, I've worked on several projects in Bloomington and elsewhere with buildings that are in such bad condition that everybody thought they should be torn down, including the owner and the contractor. But because of incentives that historic preservation offered, those people were persuaded to save the buildings. And we're talking about the Von Lee Theater and the Johnson Creamery and the Showers building, which took almost 10 years to accomplish. And in that period of time on those buildings, public opinion was significantly swayed as progress was made toward their restoration. And I have to say, it was significantly, with the possible exception of the Von Lee, it was significantly against saving those buildings, particularly from the development community and the real estate community. And I think they were wrong with those buildings, and I think they're wrong on this building. And if you want to stay in the conversation with Josh, who sounds to me, I haven't met you, Josh, but you sound like somebody who is earnest and coming forward quite honestly with your project, and I appreciate that. But if we want to stay in the conversation to see what happens here, the only choice we really have is to forward it to council for designation, make the arguments there. They may decide to do it, they may not. But if you want to continue on a conversation with Josh about ways to save the facade, as some of you have said you would like to do, or ways to save some monikers of significance, which almost all of you have said you would like to find a way to do, then I'd like to stay in the conversation through the process. And if you don't, and you allow demolition, nobody's going to ask you anything again about what happens here. And that's the choice you have. And your job, you know, our job is to look at the history, determine if we think it's significant enough to tell a story about Bloomington that we think that needs to be preserved, and to stand up for the buildings that represent that history. That's our job. That's all it is. It doesn't have anything to do with apartment buildings or what's going on anywhere else. You know, it's unfair in a way that we have to isolate that responsibility from all the other realities that we understand to be real. But that's our job. That's what we're supposed to do. And it's up to the council if they think we're doing it right or not. And I want to stay in the conversation. So I would recommend sending it to council for designation.
Thank you, Jonathan, very much. I have to agree with some of my fellow commissioners. I think retaining the streetscape is very important. And to lose these buildings, it would dramatically change that area. And so that's my comments on this. So we'll move to public comments. And who are we going to start with?
So how I'm going to do public comment is people have their hand raised. I'm going to call on them and ask them to unmute. I believe the first person to raise their hand was Mark Fig. So your time is now.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
We can, Mark.
Great. Good evening, everyone. I just, just in terms of, context, I've been working in this district since the 70s. My grandfather ran the Employment Security Office right across the street, which is now the Big Red Apartments and the Eye Mechanic. My parents had a business at 409 South Walnut, which is now Bedrick Cafe. So I've been spending time in that area for a long, long time. First and foremost, I have frequented all the establishments there since the late 70s. So I've been in the building a lot. As a person in real estate development and economic development through BEDC, I really first and foremost care more about humans than buildings. And I want to see this property be more dense in whatever way it needs to get done, historically or otherwise. We do not have enough housing in our community. Our rents and prices for housing are going up at too fast a clip. So, I come from that first. And then secondly, I do believe this building, I recognize its historical significance. I know what's gone on there. And I believe that making this building be more intensively used for the betterment of the community is better for everybody in the long run. I like Josh's ideas that I've heard tonight about changing things or paying homage to the past, which is fine. In addition to some of those facade comments from others, I've never done a project that way personally, but I'd be interested to hear how that could be done. So that's a challenge to Josh if he has the opportunity to develop this. So, again, I think buildings are buildings and people are people, and I think we can better our people. And I don't believe that this building is that significant, in my opinion, and spending a big chunk of my lifetime there. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mark. Next, Mr. Price.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Hi, good evening. I wanted to call in tonight. I've been watching this a bit from afar and for about the past month or two, and I'm curious about the petitioning that went on and what the true metrics that were used in order to gather that information to provide this committee with empirical data. What I've heard a lot tonight is a lot of emotion. And I understand when it comes to historical sites that there is emotion when it comes to people who have visited the facility. But I've also read 3 of the documents that were provided in this presentation that said that this building is untenable in order to refurbish. I do like the ideas of the facade and saving some of the integrity of the Players Pub and that front large capital M to pay homage. But I'm just curious if, I think it was Jeff G who said that the petitions were at a click of 2 to 1 in terms of 2 being for the demolition to bring in future commerce and a more dense building, to 1 to take it to council. And I'm just wondering, at what point does the community really, have you really taken into account what the community would like to see? And then what do you think about a 2 to 1 spread? I think that's pretty definitive. But I also don't know what you use for metrics, what your cross-reference is, what was the amount of people that were petitioned, and on and on. I just wanted to kind of just, at the end of the day, is that even a consideration? And that's all I have. And I wish everyone well. Thank you.
Connor, you want to address that?
Elena Chambers.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So my perspective is a little bit different because I am a descendant of the Mitchell family. Stanley and Ira are my 2 times great uncles. And I just wanted to give a little bit of that Mitchell perspective. For those of you that are not aware of the family history in Monroe County, their father, Isaac, who would be my 2 times great grandfather, is Civil War veteran. He was in the 24th Regiment, Company A for Indiana. And when he got out of the Civil War, he was born in Lawrence County, moved to Monroe County. He and his wife had 11 children. 10 of those were boys and 1 daughter. And so the Mitchell brothers are the sons of that family. Isaac was also a county commissioner during 1906 and 1907, at least. It may have gone on another year or 2. But he was on the county commission when the proposal was made and then accepted to build the courthouse, which is on the square right now. So, we've got some long-standing history of community service and involvement. The family farm is no longer here, but it was located on the south side, kind of where Henderson and Walnut Street Pike all converge in that area. That's where the family farm used to be and where those boys would have been raised. And I think the biggest thing for me is just given I'm sorry, I'm in the parking lot itself, so I apologize for the sirens going off. The Mitchell family had such a heart and soul for community service. And I would just like to see, I guess I'm with some others that I've heard on the commission already, talking about at least keeping the facade as a nod to the history of our town and where we came from. So thank you for your consideration.
Wonderful. I appreciate your comments, Elena.
Yes.
Jan Sorby?
Hi, I have several things to say. I think that there's no question that this should be saved. There are not very many commercial buildings of this era that are still existing. To the discussion of the idea of density and more dense buildings and whatnot along this corridor, there are 2 blocks just south of this that contain 6 either service parking lots or used car lots. There are lots and lots of places for more density to go. And the context of the street is incredibly important. To the north, on the west side of the street, there are really some other super buildings from this era. And together, I think that they would make just an outstanding district. And yeah, I live in the south end of town. So this is kind of my neighborhood. And to talk about places that are good for upcoming businesses, new businesses, this would make an ideal place. This is the kind of places that new restaurants want to go to. It's the kind of businesses that a lot of our younger people are starting. So what if we got rid of the Frosted Foods building before, or the Johnson Creamery, or the Encore building? If you got rid of, how many of those would you need to get rid of before that area would not be what it is today, which is a wonderful place. Lots of young people are starting businesses there. And a lot of development in the larger student developments. The developers come back and they say, we just can't get anybody to fill those spots. A commercial, nobody wants to be in those commercial spaces. And that is true. It's absolutely true. But the old Encore building where Bloomington Foods is, or the Eiffel building, and particularly Frosted Foods, it's always full. People always want to be there. They have no problem renting spaces like that out. What if the Showers building, everybody had said, oh, that's too expensive to fix, or Fountain Square? This is what restoration is. Sure, the floor system is problematic. They had no guidelines then for floor systems. Sure, it needs a new roof. Sure, it needs tuck pointing. All those things are part of it. The essence of the building is still there. It's always been there in all the photos. And I just want to say, don't orphan the other good buildings that are there. Don't orphan the context. Yes, this is an area that needs to be saved and needs to be helped. It's really at risk. And the best way to help this area is investment in rehab. I just want to say one other thing, really. When I heard people talking, whatnot, something that came to my mind is what Jane Jacobs said. She said, old ideas can sometimes use new buildings. New ideas must use old buildings. Old buildings are crucial to thriving cities. And I think that sort of sums up why we need to keep these buildings that are right there along South Walnut. We've demolished all of them to our northern gateway. Can't we please save the ones to our southern gateway to our city? It speaks of what it is, what our city has been, and we can learn from it for future generations. So please save these. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Jan. Danielle.
Next, we have Danielle.
Hi, folks. Hi. It's hard to follow Duncan Campbell and Jan Sorby on comments because they both said so much of what I would also say. I would like to also, in following what Jan said, this is my neighborhood too. It's more of the scale that is comfortable to those of us who live in the neighborhoods that are within walking distance. Someone who drives South Walnut, South College frequently, it's important to have these human scale buildings in our vicinity. And I will also just follow what Duncan said to the commissioners as someone who served on the Bloomington Historic Preservation Commission, is that if you want to even explore the idea of saving the facades, then you need to go to the next step so that you can have that discussion. It is an opportunity to come to some kind of middle ground. So I'd like to encourage you to go towards designation recommendation, just so you can at least have those conversations. And I cannot help, I know I submitted comments to all of you because I was not sure I would be able to be on this Zoom meeting tonight. I also submitted history on the Mitchell construction with Bill Coulter's assistance, Megan at the History Center. But I have to say that, I remember visiting this building with Nancy Heaston to examine it prior to the owner at that time potentially receiving a facade grant. And I remember how excited we all were to discover that, yes, the original windows were there. Yes, the sign was behind the faux mansard roof. Yes, the original fenestration was intact. Even that glass block entrance is original to the period it was installed. And if I recall correctly, the Players Pub sign is just placed over the Boxman sign. That was part of the stipulation to not ruin the original sign. In essence, the facade is original. And as so many have said, I've seen a photograph of a pile of what look like sticks restored into the most beautiful home. We have, as Duncan and others, Jan and others have said, this one reminds me of the Mitchell section reminds me of 112 East 3rd Street. That was a mess, and the HPC wrangled over it, and it's now a wonderfully contributing building with new buildings around it, yes, but it's still part of our city. And like others have said, the Home Laundry building, the Coca-Cola building, the Frosted Foods building, the building that's currently Blooming Foods, Johnson's Creamery, Showers, Smallwood Pike, the courthouse. All these buildings were considered a dump. They were considered awful. They were not worth saving, and yet they were. And there's so many others. But what would we be if we didn't have these buildings now? So I would like to encourage the HPC to vote to at least move this to the next level so that further discussions can take place. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle.
All right, next we have Beth. Beth, if you're there, your time to comment is now. All right, next we have Harry Chance.
Good evening. I appreciate you guys allowing me to sit in and listen. I grew up in Bloomington. I do live in San Antonio, Texas now. And maybe it give you all a different perspective of someone who comes in at least 4 times a year and sees his town that he grew up in the 60s and 70s. Totally different especially when y'all change streets to one ways and I'm going the wrong way because out of habit. Learn quick though. But I used to actually, in high school, I worked at that marathon station right on the corner. And I can tell you that Bloomington has grown up and there's been some great things done for it. But in this area here, you've got a lot of homeless people less than 2 blocks away. You compare this building to the Chocolate Moose, which basically sat in the middle of a parking lot and was basically a shed, even though it still had, you know, some great memories. Josh, I would tell you, I think what you want to try to do makes some sense, but I think the front end of this building and most of this building has to be much more of a bigger part of it. And I think for the community to be able to have that input and to be able to help you understand that, I think you guys need to push it to the committee. That way, I think you're still going to be able to accomplish something. And I think it would be better for it. But the nostalgia of Bloomington is still there. And I think the Bloomington still wants to be able to have some input on it. So I wish you all luck. Just know that when I come home, this is home. Bloomington's home. And I appreciate the opportunity to be able to sit in and listen to y'all talk. Restoration of that front part and probably part of what's inside. I still think something in the back could be able to be built up and be able to generate more income and opportunity for Bloomington. So thank you very much for allowing me to participate.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Harry. CP?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Just to be real quick, I believe that location is what, 2 blocks from Homeless Central. And if it was any other location, I can see the points of saving it, but it needs to be revitalized. This town needs to be, it needs to keep going the direction we're going. We have a shortage of precious real estate. They're not building anymore. So I think we should take the bad part of town, which that is certainly becoming. I don't feel safe walking there at night, and making it a nice part of town. That's really all I have to say.
Thank you. Steve?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I just wanted to say that these buildings are not ordinary. Typically, when you designate a property or when you recommend designation to the city council, it's because of its architecture. In this case, the architectural argument's there, but there's an extraordinary argument for the biographical criterion here. And it's very unusual. You have this strong of a story, this strong of a historical meaning for a building. So I think that makes this one unusual when it comes to designations. And another thing I think to keep in mind is that its relation to the other Mitchell buildings in the community. And there's going to be development pressure to tear down other ones too. There's houses on Walnut Street and other commercial buildings that were related to the family. And if this one goes, I think you're probably going to see people come forward to propose demolitions of other ones too. So if we care about these wire brick and limestone and tapestry brick buildings that the family built in the 20s, then I think now's the time to start sending them to the city council. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. There's another comment. I'm going to make a comment if there's okay. So,
we have one more.
Oh, I'm sorry, we have one moment.
All right, this will be our last public comment. Josh?
Yeah, is it okay for me to talk?
Yeah, Josh.
Okay, and just so everyone knows, and I'm not sure where some of the people who actually took the time actually out of their day to comment tonight. So thank you everyone that did. But we own actually Mitchell buildings already, and we took the time to restore those. And so they look the way they do because we care about the buildings and the integrity of them. And so, like I've said before, like our thought process here, we didn't get here lightly. I mean, but the fact of the matter is, guys, like I'm not a developer. This is my first go round at this. I'm not Bill Cook. I don't have any supplies of money. We've had conversations with the 3 contractors that we have reached out to potentially do this project. Saving the initial facade is not economically feasible. You know, it's always easier to talk about spending money when it's not yours. And so that's the situation we're in. And so that's why we're here. And so I respect everyone's comments, but again, especially with the cost of goods right now with the pandemic, you know, a 2x4s went up 60% here in the past month. The sheet of plywoods went up, you know, almost 100%, actually over 100%. And so doing the things that you guys are talking about is easy when it's not your money. And like I said, I'm not Bill Cook. I've got a day job. And so I just take that into consideration. I mean, because what you guys are talking about is pricing this way, it's not going to happen. So
this is Tim Ellis. May I make a comment?
Hang on, Tim. We'll let Josh finish up. And I have one more.
No,
you, Tim.
Go ahead, Tim. All right, before Tim, we have Jared raise his hand. Jared.
Yeah, I just think that it's such an eyesore to drive down through there and to see that building and the condition that it's in. I think it's time to let it go. I mean, like, kind of like what Mr. Price was saying, there's a bunch of emotion here, and it's not really, that's not what it's about. It's about what do we do to make Bloomington look great again, and what do we do to help bring some more money in. And you know, I think it's something that just needs to go. It's had its purpose. It's going to be way too expensive to repurpose it. Tear it down. Let's get rid of it.
Thank you, Jared.
Tim?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Tim.
I got the floor?
Yes.
If you can hear me, I'll make a comment about the building.
Please go ahead.
They hear you. They hear you. They hear you.
Yeah, this is Tim Ellis, and I own property along with my wife, Dorothy, behind and next to this building, and we've had those properties for nearly 50 years. And I'm quite familiar with the Players Pub because I remember it as Boxman's. I don't believe Boxman's ever owned the building. They were tenants there. They did own the house next door, which now is under our ownership. The building itself, I believe, is not a Mitchell building. It doesn't have any of the characteristics of the Mitchell buildings. The M in the brick has been there part of the time not. But if you look at the old pictures of that building, you'll see that it's had a variety of uses over the years. My father, Joe Ellis, in 1967 rented the building. The owner lived in Bloomfield, and he opened a bar there. My dad did, and operated the bar till his money was gone, and then closed up the bar. But if you look at the different pictures, you see the different designs on the front. I don't think the building today has any historical significance. The two stone houses that were the Adams brothers' homes that are catty-corner to this property to the back, they were built in 1894, and certainly they have a lot of historical significance. And that's why when I first bought those houses and had an opportunity to sell them to a drugstore, and there was no there were no restrictions at that time, I couldn't even consider tearing those beautiful buildings down. But this building has had different changes and different designs and different uses. It's not a beautiful building. It doesn't have historical significance. It's not a Mitchell building. And I believe tearing the building down and reusing that property into something new is a positive endeavor. So I would heartily support the petitioner's request to demo this building. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. All right, do we have any more public comments?
Beth, one last chance. Okay.
Thank you. I was having technical difficulties earlier. No, I was just going to kind of bounce off what Mr. Ellis was saying, that this, I love our little downtown area. The entire square has been restored and all the buildings look great. And for the most part, they're occupied. There are some, commercial spaces that are having trouble right now. But I think that entire street right there, that whole block has been neglected for a long time. There's boarded up houses, there's boarded up buildings. If it was that historical, which it remains to be seen that is a Mitchell building. If it is that historical, I believe that those would have been taken care of. And that whole block there has kind of been piecemealed. There's big buildings, the Chocolate Mousse is now gone and there's something big there. So I just don't see how that can be considered the same historical area, which I don't believe it is considered a historical area, but I would just be one of them that would support tearing it down and building something that would further help and beautify our downtown area. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. My comment at this point is that I disagree with the comments about the homeless. Whether we put a new building there or not, we'll still have that same issue. I do believe that it's a Mitchell Brothers building, and I do believe it's worth our effort to move it on to City Council. So I would like to hear from our commissioners what they would like for us to do.
Well, we have to make a motion one way or the other, right, to start this process?
Yeah, Jeff, for a demolition delay, so the options are release.
Right. No, I understand that, but there has to be a motion based on the two, so one motion has to be made one way or the other and then voted on. And then the other motion can be made, right?
Yep.
So I'll go ahead and make a motion, and then we'll just go through the process.
Right.
So today, regarding the property located at 424.5 South Walnut, the Historic Preservation Commission declares that it got notice of the proposed demolition, and after today's discussion, sees no need to review the plans any further and waives the rest of the demolition delay waiting period. The HPC may later recommend the property for historic designation to the Common Council.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Dee, will you do roll call?
You need a second?
Oh, I'm sorry, we need a second.
I'll second.
All right.
Second. So, but could you tell me with all that kind of demolition language, what does a yes mean and what does a no mean? Please confirm.
Yes means tear it down.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. All right, Dee.
Doug Bruce.
Yes.
Sam DeSaller.
Yes.
Susan Dyer.
No.
Jeff Golden.
Yes.
Deb Hutton.
No.
Lee Sandwise. Lee Sandwise.
She might be muted.
No. Did you hear me?
Right.
Is that a no?
Big no, yeah.
Okay. John Saunders.
No.
Chris Sturbaum.
No. I said no. Can you hear me?
Yes, Chris, I'm waiting for
Okay.
Dee to give us the count. Dee?
5, 3.
Can you repeat that, Dee?
It's 5, 3, 0.
So
5 no, 3 yes.
5 no, 3 yes.
All right, thank you very much.
So the motion fails.
Okay.
So someone else needs to make a motion.
I'll move we follow Connor's recommendation to forward this to the Common Council.
Okay.
There is a statement on the paper about that.
Somebody's going to have to do that then.
I'll read it now, Jeff. Resolution to start formal review of the property for recommendation for local historic designation. Effect of the resolution to start public hearing process. Notice to adjacent property owners and publication in the Herald Times. Today, regarding the property located at 424.5 South Walnut, the Historic Preservation Commission declares that it got notice of proposed demolition and requests the staff to prepare a formal report of the property and put the property on the HPC agenda to be officially considered for historic designation under BMC 8.08.01D. Also, we would like to put in interim protection. We can't do it, okay.
Need a second.
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 Okay, D,
Okay, Doug Bruce,
No.
Sam DeSaller,
I'll abstain.
Susan Dyer,
Yes.
Jeff Golden,
No.
Deb Hutton,
Yes.
Lee Sandweiss,
Yes.
John Saunders,
yes.
and Chris Sturbaum.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-1.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody who came to our commission meeting tonight. Look forward to moving this on. Okay.
What is this?
So what about interim protection?
So the interim protection cannot be placed until after the next meeting because we have to give notice to adjacent property owners and public notice in the HP.
Right.
Right.
So up next, we have demo delay 2023. This is a request for full demolition of the California bungalow at 1003 West First Street. The HBC released 2 structures in the immediate vicinity several weeks ago, citing loss of historic context. The situation with this property is no different. Same area, same street. Staff would recommend the petitioner talk to BRI to explore if moving the building is economically feasible. But staff would recommend ultimately releasing demo delay 2023.
All right. Chris, questions? Is there, we don't need a petition. Does anybody have questions?
Can we put this off?
Yes, you don't have to make a decision today.
I think it's in pristine shape. I hate to let go of it. I move that we put this to the next meeting, continue it.
Why continue it? Why not have the discussion now?
I want to eat supper. I guess that's sort of a selfish position, but maybe somebody else wants to too.
Thank you, Chris. So we need a motion from our members to move this to our next meeting.
I move we continue it to next meeting.
All right, thank you, Chris. Is everybody else in agreement?
No.
I'll second that. I'm Susan.
Thank you, Susan.
D?
Doug Bruce,
Yes.
Sam DeSaller,
No.
Susan Dyer,
Yes.
Jeff Golden,
No.
Deb Hutton,
No.
Lee Sandweiss,
No.
John Saunders.
No.
Was that a no?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Chris Sturbaum,
Yes.
motion carry, or is 4-4-0.
Fails.
Okay. So let's move on to discussion.
Would any commissioners like to comment on the item? Have anything to say?
Well, I'll ask a question. When you, Connor, you talked about BRI being suggested. Does anything come from a discussion with BRI?
I don't think the petitioner has met with BRI. I believe we asked them to do the same thing with the similar house last time. I don't know if they've talked with BRI. I believe the petitioner, a representative of the petitioner is present with Cheyenne Riker. Cheyenne, have you talked about moving, or would you be willing to do that?
We have not discussed that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
What is the intent of taking it down? What's the purpose of removal?
So at this point, we have a number of different ideas. So I work for a company called Haven Behavioral Healthcare, and we manage the Indiana Center for Recovery. Immediately adjacent, I believe this is the property immediately adjacent to 909 West First Street, which is the apartment building to the west or to the east of the residence that we're looking to demolish. And that whole area, first of all, this property has some structural shortcomings. I'm looking at the Trinity home inspection now. It has some structural shortcomings, and I understand your position, Mr. Sturbaum, that everything can be repaired. And admittedly, this one probably could be repaired. But I think that the direction this area is moving in, and the fact that there is very little, as the staff recommends, there's very little historic value to this project. I think that regardless of the direction that we go, if it's in the same realm as the current use, which is largely healthcare, I think that we could I think that the Historic Preservation Commission could justify what it is that we are hoping to accomplish here, which is to have this demolished. But the ideas that we've tossed around have circulated around the possibility of a garden area. We've talked about a potential park, sort of like a botanical garden. We've gone through a number of different ideas. We just haven't settled on anything specific at this point. Now,
right. A typical agreement can be to donate demolition costs toward a move, and that would be something we would like to see you discuss with Bloomington Restorations, if you could.
Okay, sure.
And Steve Wyatt is actually on this, I believe, still on this in this meeting, so he's here.
And I understand this probably isn't the proper context for this question, but does anyone have the contact information? Or is this something I just need to Google?
Talk to Connor.
Yeah, Connor can do that for you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Let me
Okay, do we have any more comment from the commissioners?
The only comment I have is this is going to be a difficult sell in the political sense, especially since we've already allowed two on this street.
Yeah.
And in the interest of, the commission's want to get the previous demolition delay through, I think it's worth our while to let this go.
Thank you, Jeff. Well, if anyone would feel free to read the sheet to release it. Jeff, I think you have it.
I do. Yeah, I'll read it. So I got to get him.
Jeff, you're all mute.
I know. Okay, here we go. Today, regarding the property located at 1003 West First Street, the Historic Preservation Commission declares that it got notice of the proposed demolition, and after today's discussion sees no need to review the plans any further and waives the rest of the demolition delay waiting period. The HPC may later recommend the property for historic designation to the Common Council.
Second.
Okay, Chris Sturbaum.
Right.
Doug Bruce.
He's gone.
He left the meeting, yes.
Sam DeSaller,
Yes.
Susan Dyer,
Yes.
Jeff Golden,
Yes.
Deb Hutton,
Yes.
Lee Sandweiss,
Yes.
John Saunders,
John Saunders, would you like to release?
Yes.
Chris Sturbaum.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0-0.
All right.
That's the last of our business.
Thank you very much. So, adoption of restaurant road design guidelines under old business. Do you want to discuss that this evening, or would you like to table it for our next meeting?
I'm ready to adopt them unless anyone else has anything to say or change.
I personally have reviewed them and I'm happy with them.
And I don't know, you probably didn't have time to look at what I sent you immediately before the meeting, but I've got a couple of illustrations to fill in.
Well, Sam, if we can approve these tonight, I will certainly incorporate those into the final version.
Okay, thank you, Sam. So
I move that we approve the restaurant row guidelines, subject to Sam's contribution.
I'll second.
Great. Dee?
Okay, Sam DeSaller,
Yeah.
Susan Dyer,
Yes.
Jeff Golden,
Yes.
Deb Hutton,
Yes.
Lee Sandweiss,
Lee?
Lee,
Yes.
I said yes.
okay. John Saunders,
Yes.
Chris Sturbaum.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0-0.
Great. Okay. Commissioner comments?
I just want to commend Connor on a job well done. Thank you for your work.
Here, here.
I'll second that.
Yeah, the report was really complete. I do have, Duncan brought up a couple points about having some more detailed information around COAs, for instance, the door, that kind of thing. If you can just make sure that some of that gets included in the original packet, I think that'd be really helpful.
I try my best, Jeff. Susan sent me the door like 3 days ago. So I should have included it in the PowerPoint, but it slipped my mind today. It was a crazy day. But I understand what you're saying. I know what you guys need, and I try to deliver.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Connor.
Yeah, you did a great job on the Boxman thing. That was a great story.
Yes, thank you. And I want to thank all our commissioners this evening for all their input. It was very valuable. And any more comments? All right, hearing none. Let's close the meeting.
Good night. Good luck.
Thank you. Good night. Thank
Stay
you.
safe.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.